All of these efforts will require tough choices. All these efforts will require compromise. But the difficulties can't serve as an excuse for inaction, not anymore, which brings me to one final point I'd like to make today. I've talked a lot about the fundamental weakness in our economy that led us to this day of reckoning. But we also arrived here because of a fundamental weakness in our political system. For too long, too many in Washington put off hard decisions for some other time, on some other day. There's been a tendency to spend a lot of time scoring political points instead of rolling up sleeves to solve real problems. There's also an impatience that characterizes this town, an attention span that has only grown shorter with the "24-hour news cycle that insists on instant gratification in the form of immediate results or higher poll numbers. When a crisis hits, there's all too often a lurch from shock to trance. With everyone responding to the tempest of the moment until the furor has died down, the media coverage has moved on to something else. Instead of confronting the major challenges that will shape our future in a sustained and focused way. This can't be one of those times. The challenges are too great. The stakes are too high. I know how difficult it is for members. Of Congress in both parties to grapple with some of the big decisions we face right now. I'd love if these problems were coming at us one at a time instead of 5 or 6 at a time. It's more than most Congresses and most presidents have to deal with in a lifetime. But we have been called to govern in extraordinary times. And that requires an extraordinary sense of responsibility to ourselves, to the men and women who sent us here. To the many generations whose lives will be affected for good or for ill because of what we do here. There is no doubt that times are still tough. By no means are we out of the woods just yet. But from where we stand, for the very first time, we're beginning to see glimmers of hope. And beyond that, way off in the distance, we can see a vision of an America's future that is far. Different than our troubled economic past. It's an America teeming with new industry and commerce. Humming with new energy and discoveries that light the world once more, a place where anyone from anywhere with a good idea or the will to work can live the dream they've heard so much about. That is the house upon the rock, proud, sturdy, unwavering in the face of the greatest storms. And we will not finish it in 1 year. We will not finish it in many. But if we use this moment to lay that new foundation, if we come together and begin the hard work of rebuilding, if we persist and persevere against the disappointments and setbacks that will surely lie ahead, then I have no doubt that this house will stand and the dream of our founders will live on in our time. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Barack Obama. New Nationalism Address at Osawatomie High School. Delivered December 6, 2011, Osawatomie, Kansas. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I want to start by thanking a few folks who've joined us today. We've got the mayor of Osawatomie, Phil Dudley is here. We have your superintendent Gary French in the house. And we have the principal of Osawatomie High, Doug Chisholm. And I have brought your former governor, who is doing now an outstanding job as secretary. Of Health and Human Services Kathleen Sebelius is in the house. We love Kathleen. Well, it is great to be back in the state of Kansas. I was giving Bill Self a hard time, he was here a while back. As many of you know, I have roots here. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Obamas of Osawatomie. Actually, I like to say that I got my name from my father. But I got my accent and my values from my mother. She was born in Wichita. Her mother. Grew up in Augusta. Her father was from El Dorado. So my Kansas roots run deep. My grandparents served during World War II. He was a soldier in Patton's army, she was a worker on a bomber assembly line. And together, they shared the optimism of a nation that triumphed over the Great Depression and over fascism. They believed in an America where hard work paid off, and responsibility was rewarded. And anyone could make it if they tried, no matter who you were, no matter where you came from, no matter how you started out. And these values gave rise to the largest middle class and the strongest economy that the world has ever known. It was here in America that the most productive workers, the most innovative companies turned out. The best products on earth. And you know what? Every American shared in that pride and in that success. From those in the executive suites to those in middle management to those on the factory floor. So you could have some confidence that if you gave it your all, you'd take enough home to raise your family and send your kids to school and have your health care covered, put a little away for retirement. Today, we're still home to the world's most productive workers. We're still home to the world's most innovative companies. But for most Americans, the basic bargain that made this country great has eroded. Long before the recession hit, hard work stopped paying off for too many people. Fewer and fewer of the folks who contributed to the success of our economy actually benefited from that success. Those at the very top grew wealthier from their incomes and their investments, wealthier than ever before. But everybody else struggled with costs that were growing and paychecks that weren't. And too many families found themselves racking up more and more debt just to keep up. Now, for many years, credit cards and home equity loans papered over this harsh reality. But in 2008, the house of cards collapsed. We all know the story by now: mortgages sold to people who couldn't afford them. Or even sometimes understand them. Banks and investors allowed to keep packaging the risk and selling it off. Huge bets and huge bonuses made with other people's money on the line. Regulators who were supposed to warn us about the dangers of all this. But looked the other way or didn't have the authority to look at all. It was wrong. It combined the breathtaking greed of a few with irresponsibility all across the system. And it plunged our economy and the world into a crisis from which we're still fighting to recover. It claimed the jobs and the homes and the basic security of millions of people innocent. Hard-working Americans who had met their responsibilities but were still left holding the bag. And ever since, there's been a raging debate over the best way to restore growth and prosperity. Restore balance, restore fairness. Throughout the country, it sparked protests and political movements from the Tea Party to the people who've been occupying the streets of New York and other cities. It's left Washington in a near constant state of gridlock. It's been the topic of heated and sometimes colorful discussion among the men and women running for president. But, Osawatomie, this is not just another political debate. This is the defining issue of our time. This is a make or break moment for the middle class. And for all those who are fighting to get into the middle class. Because what's at stake is whether this will be a country where working people can earn enough to raise a family. Build a modest savings, own a home, secure their retirement. Now, in the midst of this debate, there are some who seem to be suffering from a kind of collective amnesia. After all that's happened, after the worst economic crisis, the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. They want to return to the same practices that got us into this mess. In fact, they want to go back to the same policies that stacked the deck against middle-class Americans for way too many years. And their philosophy is simple. We are better off when everybody is left to fend for themselves and play by their own rules. I am here to say they are wrong. I'm here in Kansas to reaffirm my deep conviction that we're greater together than we are on our own. I believe that this country succeeds when everyone gets a fair shot. When everyone does their fair share, when everyone plays by the same rules. These aren't democratic values or Republican values. These aren't 1% values or 99% values. They're American values. And we have to reclaim them. You see, this isn't the first time America has faced this choice. At the turn of the last century, when a nation of farmers was transitioning to become the world's industrial giant. We had to decide, would we settle for a country where most of the new railroads, and factories were being controlled by a few giant monopolies that kept prices high and wages low? Would we allow our citizens and even our children to work? Ungodly hours in conditions that were unsafe and unsanitary? Would we restrict education to the privileged few? Because there were people who thought massive inequality and exploitation of people was just the price you pay for progress.